Okay, welcome to the inaugural stream for my channel on Twitch. Very happy to be a partner with Amazon and Twitch, and kicking off with a show that's kind of been in my mind for a long time. I've called it Breaking Absolutes because I'm so passionate about this genre of music, and I feel like sometimes it's misunderstood, and there are a lot of stereotypes. So I want to bring on guests who I think sort of lead the charge in creating music that has an emotional core that I think is appealing to pretty much anybody. So the job will be to kind of introduce them to it and introduce them to the artists that are creating this music with such energy and passion. And I'm honored today to have John Petrucci join me. John and I go way, way back, but got much closer through some collaboration work that he honored me to do with a big record they did a few years ago called The Astonishing. And since then, he's been gracious to take my texts and my calls over the years. But he's got a bunch of new music out, more music coming, and I want to talk to him on a bunch of fronts. So let me introduce John this way. He is the guitarist, founder, producer, lyricist for progressive metal giants Dream Theater. Many of you probably know these things, but I just want to kind of get him on the record. The accolades really for John go on and on. He's been voted the best prog guitarist by Prog Magazine, one of the best who's ever laid hands on a fretboard by Ultimate Evolved Guitarist, greatest guitarist by Burn Magazines. And I know that these are that sounds like hyperbole, but we'll actually, I think, show some clips here today of John's work and kind of dig into this. So without further ado, let me bring John on. John, welcome.
Hey.
How are you doing?
What's happening?
I may have to adjust your frame. We can see you, but I've got you just a little bit off. So I'll do that as we go. Hey, listen, so I want to begin. I've got several things I want to talk about, but I want to start with LTE3. I had a chance, your publicist was gracious enough to get me a link. I've been listening to the record. I do like you do, I think. I listen to a record start to finish. I don't cherry pick the tracks. And it occurred to me, and I could be wrong about this, you can correct me, but it feels like you guys were really thoughtful in the sort of ebb and flow between energy and introspection and flavors of different styles of music. Would that be an accurate statement?
Well, yeah. But before I answer it, I would be remiss if I didn't say hello.
Oh,
how are
yes,
you?
You should.
Good to see you. And congratulations on your new channel here, Breaking Absolutes. Thank you for having me as your inaugural guest.
Oh, yeah, man.
That's really cool. I love your shirt. Looks like When Dream and Day Unite, Distance Over Time. Wow, that's like first album to last.
Yeah,
that's pretty cool.
I have to admit I did that. When you did the Distance Over Time, the way you did it as a math sort of signal, I thought, how could I express my fandom? Because I am a fan, in addition to us having some rapport, from start to finish. And I thought I could write the whole thing as an equation. So
there you go.
This
I
is
love it. Well,
I just made this up.
That's how it started. The whole, terminal. I'm sorry, the distance over time equation when we were working on the album. But anyway. It's good to see you, and thanks for that awesome introduction. I'm all verklempt. I don't know what to say.
Well, there's times when I think it's worth saying because your work ethic in your craft has always been in evidence, even from I remember the first time, even before I saw you guys live for the first time, I saw your instructional video. And you did this crazy thing I'd never seen a guitarist do, and you put on a metronome. And I thought, there could be hours and hours of listening to that could get, mind-boggling. And I remember the stories of the hours and hours that you would practice. And I think that just borne fruits over time. I mean, it's not as though, I know you have a gift, but there's also been a great deal of effort, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, with any instrument, whether it's your voice or guitar, there's the craft part of it. There's definitely the love and passion for it, and some people, there's no doubt, are given talents that it's like they were just meant to do a certain thing, play a certain sport or play a certain instrument for sure. But anybody will tell you that's been doing this professionally or tried to achieve a certain level that might be a small percentage of it, but the 98% of it is all the craft.
Yeah.
On spending the time and discipline and practice. And I learned that at an early age, and I was kind of obsessed with it, and it continued through it. And I'm still like that. So it's fun.
Yeah.
Also, I wanted to apologize for my very plain background.
Oh,
yours is a lot more exciting. I've been in the studio nonstop like since last March between my solo album Liquid Tension and Dream Theater, and I'm home, and there's a section where there's a lot of filming and stuff going on in my house, but there's this blue screen for the purpose of different applications. Right now it's just blue, so apologies, but I do have at least I have a little guitar prop there.
Yeah, you do.
So it's not the full-on DT studio that I thought it would be. But anyway, I should probably answer your first question.
Yeah, let's get into
forgetting now, but
no, that's okay.
It's about Liquid Tension.
It is. I want to start, and I'm going to work. I've got a method to my madness here. I'm going to start.
All right, cool.
The most specific and going to argue backwards to the general. I learned this in college. It's way too esoteric a thing to say on Twitch, probably. So LTE, it's a. I listened to this record several times, front to back, and it felt to me. And I think you do this, you're very thoughtful about this on all of the records you touch as a producer. It feels like it was very thoughtful in the selection of songs to create some sort of emotional ebb and flow. And I know that can sound like a really high-minded statement. You can tell me if I'm kind of full of myself there. But is that true? Like, do you really think about that as you go through and put the album together?
Yeah, there's a couple of parts to that. I mean, one of them is that there is a small history now that this is our third album with Liquid Tension Experiment. So there is a bit of a content history from the last two. Like, in other words, we touched on this certain kind of song and this certain kind of song, and we had some jams and we had some duets, and we established that a bit on the first two albums. So there is sort of a continuation with that, so it's not like when we got together, we were all of a sudden going to make this album that was, you didn't recognize. We wanted to keep the LTE sound, and our sonic aesthetic. So you're going to see, stylistically that stuff come into play. And as we're putting together the album and writing, we're definitely conscious of it. Like, oh, like we really should have a high speed crazy song. Let's write that now. Or this is all great, but it needs a little, respite. Like, let's do a duet keyboard guitar. We've done that before. It worked out good. So there is that. But Mike Portnoy is definitely the king of like putting together the order of events, that song sequencing, which he did for this as well.
Okay.
And I know that he thinks that way, and he listens constantly over and over and over late night, and comes up with an order, and so there is a flow there for sure. So it's a little bit of a combination of both, that as it's being written, we're kind of determining what it's missing, what it needs, what will help make this a complete listening experience and not one-dimensional. And then the other part of that is just, again, it's kind of like music. It's the craft. Well, how does this all fit together now? What's the actual order of the songs? How is this going to work? And there's that part of it too. So yeah, it's definitely thoughtful. It's definitely purposeful. It's a little different with instrumental music because it's, it's not thematically sort of connected with vocals and everything. And LT it's a project. This is only our third album, so it's a little slightly more arbitrary, but there is that thing that you're mentioning.
Well, let me ask you about that. You actually anticipate a question. So I got onto this idea about absolute music. It was actually came from a lyric in one of Labree's solo records, and he sings a lyric that says a life with no absolutes at all. And I'd heard about this in college, but I went back and I became fascinated with the idea of absolute music versus programmatic music or program music, where there's no context. And a lot of times it's in broad strokes, it's instrumental music versus music that's got sort of a libretto or lyrics to it. But and again, this may be the Orullian overlay, but when I listen to a lot of the music that you write, I do tend to feel like there's some sort of emotional narrative to it. I can give you examples we can talk about as we go through this, but when I listen to some of the songs, even on this record, and I wonder, how much of that is just my reaction, how much of that is your reaction or your creation process, or if some of that's just, happenstance. Does that just kind of happen in the process?
Right. Well, I mean, music, art is emotional. Music is emotional. Writing, visual art, music. There's always that element,
Yeah.
and it's about making a connection with people that are listening to what you've created. Sometimes that's in real time in the room with other musicians, and other times it's after something is recorded and shared. But I mean, what you're feeling, what you're describing, it's you're sorry, you're making an emotional connection
Yeah.
with what's happening musically, and yeah, that's a huge part of it. To me, it's what it makes it all go around. We could talk about the other things, practicing metronome, craft, career, bands, projects, but it all kind of boils down to and centers around the music that's coming out, and whether or not somebody's making an emotional connection to that. And that could be anything. That doesn't have to be something that's sweet and sensitive. When
That's
I
right.
say emotion, it could be anything. It could be
Yeah.
aggression, it could be everything in between. So yeah, it happens as just a natural inherent part of the process. It's not something that, I guess it's kind of accidental, but it's also just always there. It's not something that's forced.
You know,
I don't think it's something that's thought about too much.
I have
It's
this.
just, it's part of it.
I think you're right. I mean, it's not that I don't think there are musicians who maybe start with that as a premise, like the theme, and we're going to explore this, even if it's musical. But I've had this idea lately about the signal chain. I've been setting up my home studio and my own vocal signal chain, and I thought maybe that signal chain, and this is a show idea I have, but maybe that extends back to the person. Like all of the things that have made you a player, your emotional experiences, life experiences, all of the time on the craft, all of those things kind of channel through those moments when you're creating.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, and that sounds like an esoteric statement, but the thing that
It's true.
The thing that I like about, and I've always liked about your playing, is I feel like there's this sort of signature John Petrucci sound. I can identify it even if I don't know that it's you that's playing, and all the great guitarists I know have that. And I think it's a byproduct of all of the work and effort that comes with that. I'm wondering, like, do you have this sort of response to certain players where you hear it and you just kind of know that it's coming from that particular guitar player? Like there's a signature sound.
Of course. First of all, thank you for saying that. I mean, that's something that it's definitely meaningful and special to me. There's so many guitar players on the planet.
Yeah.
The fact that you're saying you could recognize my playing like that is incredible, and I appreciate that. I think that's something that gets honed in over time. And yeah, my favorite players, I know it's them immediately for sure.
Yeah.
You connect with that. Also the other thing about like the emotional side to it is I think you also get better at channeling that stuff purposefully, because sometimes, music, there are in moments of inspiration when something hits you, or you're improvising with other people, or you're alone and an idea comes to you. But sometimes you have like goals set. Take the Astonishing we mentioned before, where there's a story that's being driven and you need to kind of evoke a musical emotion that is congruent with what's going on in the story. Like there's a way to do that. Like you can use your experience and your skills to bring that forth, and like, for lack of a better word, manufacture it, or channel it, like to go to evoke the emotion you're trying to do. And I think that's something that, I mean, some people are just very naturally gifted at doing that. I find a lot of singer-songwriters are just so great at that. But that's something that for me, it's developed over time, and you kind of find you get better and better at it. And, you can either go with the flow and be in the flow state and let whatever happens, or you can set a goal with a specific outset in mind, and you find that you get, are you did you get to where you wanted to go?
Yeah.
Did you accomplish that? And when you can sit back and say, yeah, I did, this sounds exactly what I was trying to do here, or what we were trying to do if it's a band effort. So yeah, it's a
Let's
little,
and
it's a big mix of things.
let's channel it back to LTE3. So you guys,
Yeah.
you can correct me if I'm wrong, but when you do these recording projects, you do the recording in a very focused amount of time. It's not like you're in the
Yeah.
studio for 6 months.
No, it's very quick. Yeah. In
So
fact, when we're writing the songs, there on this album, there are 4 sort of like, complete original written songs from beginning to end. That would be The Passage of Time, Beating the Odds, The Key to the Imagination, and Hypersonic. And while we're writing those songs, it's very, like, you got 4 guys interacting really quickly, ideas fly really quickly, and you latch on to things really quickly, and understand it as an ensemble really quickly. So we take advantage of that by just recording it right away.
oh yeah.
So it's not like we have to write the whole song and then perform it somehow magically live and say, okay, that was a good take. It's like, if we're onto a section and it sounds good, and it might only be 30 seconds or it might be 2 minutes, we just track it right then and there. And not to get too technical, but we build the session as well, and our engineer is building the markers and the tempo and labeling, and it's being built. So by the time we're done, section by section by section by section, we could either edit, move things around, change things, shorten, get rid of a part, whatever, but the song is being constructed as we go, and it just makes it move really quickly. And then some of those performances that were captured in those moments, especially the drums, we just keep. It's like, well, that was good, why do that again? If Mike wanted to recut it or do something a little better or develop something, he certainly could do that, and he did do that. But some of those moments were just off the floor, like while it was being written.
It has these records to me have always had a little bit of that feel of spontaneity. I mean, there's composition going on, but it very much feels like a set of musicians who are kind of at a place with their instrument that they can express their musical ideas with enough facility that they can kind of go at it and have these spontaneous moments. It has that feeling. Right. I think it's one of the reasons fans love it so much.
Yeah, and you make quick decisions too. It's kind of purposely designed that way, so it's like you move on. You make, like, you're not mulling over this song and its structure for months at a time. It's like, okay, that was good, let's move on to the next section. It keeps it sort of like this adventure when you're listening. I find myself, when I listen to Liquid Tension experiment music and Dream Theater as well, for the most part, and this is from me being a objective listener, which sounds funny if you're in the band, but I'm able to do that and need to do that as a producer and just as a listener.
Yeah.
I put myself in that seat, and what I find is, like, it feels like I'm on a ride, like where you don't know what's going to happen next. It's like some sort of adventure and journey, and it doesn't get too comfortable for too long. Something's going to happen around the corner.
Yeah.
And it keeps it exciting. Yeah.
What for you distinguishes LTE from your solo work? I mean, there's the obvious, which is maybe there's a player change. But is there something about how you think about that music as, hey, this is just as John Petrucci solo record versus a collaboration?
Sure. Well, probably the biggest thing is that I'm on my solo albums, I wrote them both myself. So Suspended Animation and Terminal Velocity, there's nobody else in the room when I'm writing them. It's just me and, my engineer in this case, as I was writing in real time and he was recording stuff, but I'm not collaborating with other musicians. So it's just whatever is kind of coming out of my head, and oh, okay, let me try going here. It's not like you're bouncing the idea off with somebody else. That's the biggest difference. Whereas Liquid Tension is collaborative. We're in the same room, we're improvising, we're trading ideas, you're handing the baton, you're interacting, you're responding, you're reacting. My solo album is not that. It's just all from my brain and whatever sounds good to me at the moment. It's also it's all about the guitar.
Yeah.
That might sound selfish, but it's a solo album. So, there's no keyboards, there's no guest artists, there's no vocals, there's no other players. It's just about, I wanted to give people with both albums a window into what does it sound like when I pick up the guitar and play? What are the things I like to play? What styles do I like to play? What's my sound? What's coming out of my creative head? And so I wanted to be all about that with no other distractions. So it's really super, super guitar focused, and the guitar is taking on all the melodies and all the solos. It's not shared by anybody else. So again, very selfish of me, but hey, it's a solo album, so
Yeah.
I get to do it there.
Well, that was going to be one of my questions. It kind of scratches an itch that you can't scratch when you're collaborating, right? Because
right.
A collaboration by design needs space for the other players.
Yeah, exactly. And Liquid Tension, because you have other players involved with different backgrounds and history and stylistic specialties that they're playing, you might explore different styles and sides. Liquid Tension gets like a little jazzy sometimes, a little new agey sometimes.
Yeah.
You have the side that I bring, the riffy side and the heavy side that kind of Mike and I bring. And you have Jordan's beautiful classical side and his ability to kind of play any style. And, Tony's, experienced style where he can bring anything in, and it's quirky and it's crimson-y sometimes, or it's super amazing grooves, like it's something you hear in a Peter Gabriel album. So you have all that. And so you take the music in those different directions. For me, with my solo album, I'm coming from like, what do I like specifically as a guitar player? And I like, music that has a lot of melody. I like, great grooves and heavy riffs and 7-string guitar. I like to play blues every once in a while.
Yeah.
I like Latin and jazz and, Latin feels, and I'm getting a bit into gypsy jazz guitar and stuff like that. So it's like, you'll hear the things that excite me as an individual, and that's in my box, as opposed to, bouncing ideas off of all these different people with different sensibilities and ideas. That's another good way to describe it.
Real quick before we talk more about Terminal Velocity, there's a moment in Rhapsody in Blue. One of my favorite, like, different genre groups is a group by the name of Mannheim Steamroller, and they have an album series called Fresh Air, and they kind of kicked off that whole new age type of music back in the day. But in their 5th album, the whole theme is sort of space. And there's moments in Rhapsody in Blue that felt like that. And I thought, how cool that a record could touch so many different sort of musical, and I'm not that it was intentional, but in terms of like trying to be a new age sound. But there's so many different flavors on the record that it's just a delight to listen to. I don't mean to get into too much sort of hero worship here, but the record is really diverse. The listening experience is it never becomes. It's always surprising. So I commend that record to anybody who's listening. It's a fantastic record.
Nice. Awesome. I got to check it out.
No, but I was talking about you. I was talking about
I
LTE3.
thought you were talking about the Mannheim Steam record.
Well, I like those too.
Steam record. Steamroller record. Okay. Well, thank you for saying that. I can't take credit for that. Again, the Gershwin piece, that the middle section is just so gorgeous and beautiful. And it's like, we tried our best to kind of recreate that in our setting. I was using volume swells on the guitar to kind of imitate violins, and Jordan had a beautiful atmospheric sound. In fact, the middle section of that song is actually taken from the live version of us, I think, in LA.
Oh,
and we just used it for the studio version because of a couple of reasons. One was, it's so rubato and so just kind of like, I don't know, it's hard to do that type of thing in the studio. I suppose we could have, but it was just done in such a cool way, I think, from that live version. And it kind of tips the hat to that. So the middle section of Rhapsody, our version, is from a live version.
That's
so it's
cool.
Kind of cool.
That is cool. Yeah. Okay, let's talk more about Terminal Velocity. So your team, I was kind of looking at this, doing a little research. Other than Dave LaRue returning, seems like you're sort of team for the Terminal Velocity record was entirely different. Is your engineer,
Yeah, sure.
yeah. Was that a function of COVID, or is that just evolving relationships over time?
Well, it's evolving relationships. I mean, Jimmy T, our engineer, is somebody who we've known for many years now. He's a young guy, and he started as an assistant on a project at Cove City, the studio on Long
Oh yeah.
Island. When I'm trying to think of what album he assisted on first, if it was the Astonishing or before that. Anyway, he kind of we took him on the road, and he was a member of our live touring crew, and then he did a lot of projects for us in between. Eventually, with starting with Distance Over Time, we said, hey, why don't you engineer this record? Which he did, and he did such a brilliant job, and he only gets better and better and better, that he's like our staple guy now.
Yeah.
Jimmy T's the man. In fact, he mixed the Dream Theater live Distant Memories live from London.
Oh, did he?
Mixed that for us. Yeah. He recorded and engineered my solo album, Liquid Tension, and the new Dream Theater album. And he's just brilliant. He's a really talented guy. So that's a relationship over time, turned into somebody that I really trust in that position, and
yeah,
just super easy to work with. And the studio that we did all these projects in, it's the new Dream Theater studio. We call it DTHQ. I was going to ask about that. Yeah. And so we started, my solo album was the first record we did there. And so between him and Maddie, my guitar tech, who those guys built the place out and set up the control room and the live room and wired everything. So he's intimate with the way the studio runs.
Yeah.
And so he was the perfect personnel, not only for my solo album, but for all this stuff moving forward. In the case of Dave LaRue, same guy, obviously, with my solo album, the first one.
Yeah.
And I toured with Dave many, many times with G3. Mike Portnoy is a newcomer to my solo album. Obviously, played in the band with him for 25 years. He did play my solo music from Suspended Animation live with G3. We had fun doing that.
Yeah.
But when I did my first solo album, I didn't want to use a Dream Theater member. So I used different drummers. Now this time around, 15 years later, Mike is not a Dream Theater member anymore. So he was eligible for me to use. And we're all off the road because of the pandemic. Mike was home, and I asked him to do it. He said yes. And so the drums on Terminal is obviously Mike Portnoy, which made not only me happy, Mike happy, but a lot of fans happy to hear us together again.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Then as far as the mix engineering, I was trying to think about somebody who could mix my solo album, who, was going to be great with guitars and like kind of bring this heavy edge. And I've been a big fan of Andy Sneap for a while. And it just kind of came to me one day. I'm like, oh, I wonder if Andy would do that. I think he would crush this.
Yeah.
So Andy came on board and mixed the record. And then the artwork was done by an artist who Dream Theater used, not for cover art, but for a lot of things that people might not know. In fact, the Astonishing artwork was done by a different artist, but this artist, Sean Mosier Smith, did the whole layout for the Astonishing. And he did our tour posters and marketing and our tour programs and our merchandise and my solo album art and all my merch. And the LTE art.
Oh, did he?
And, he's a super, super talented guy. So yeah, so the team is evolving and changing. We're meeting new people. They're I guess in all those cases, with the exception of Andy, who is literally somebody who I just met for Terminal, there are all these developing relationships, like you said.
Well, when you find that person that understands your vision, can help you communicate it, you want to continue to build that rapport.
You do, and you have a hit. You kind of learn how you work together, and when you could communicate it, whether it's the person who's tracking the guitar and the drums and just gets it.
Yeah.
And and the snare just sounds so good, and the guitar tone just is mic'd perfectly, and you're tracking, you're recording, and he's there with Pro Tools, and he's editing, and he's right there. Like you have this relationship that's kind of like unspoken sometimes with an engineer that's on that level. And so you want to work with that person, they want to work with you. Same with artists, same with mix engineers. You get it, the person gets it, You call them, you have these great conversations. They deliver what you're looking for. You could be open and creative, and it's not a struggle. It's not forced. It's just like, in the same way that I guess band members have chemistry.
Yeah.
Personnel, exactly. There's chemistry between artists. There's chemistry between engineers and mixers, and yeah, for sure. Yeah. It's really cool when you find the right people. It's a great experience.
Yeah, you want to keep them around. That shared history translates to efficiency over time.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
So on the record, it's another that I think is just kind of filled with diversity. A favorite tune of mine is "The Odd Father."
Cool.
And you can kind of hear the nod audibly in the song to Sicily and the Godfather a little bit, but of course it takes off from there. Now there's another track, "Out of the Blue," which is starts with some blues stuff, and it's got blues flavor throughout. It got me wondering, do you have are there blues players you love to listen to, guys who that's just kind of their niche and they inspire you?
Right. Well, I mean, Stevie Ray Vaughan's one of my favorite of all time, for sure.
Yeah.
Without a doubt. And I know that song might not necessarily be in that style of a Stevie song, but I just draw inspiration from him big time. And another guy would be Gary Moore, in kind of more appropriately playing in that style I was doing, which is more of a just like a gainy lead sound in with more of a rock, I guess, sensibility to it. Sometimes I'll think of players like Larry Carlton, Robin Ford a little bit. They're a bit more jazzy, but I'll kind of like think along those lines. Sometimes John Scofield, again, maybe a little more outside, a little more Milesy, but they're all in there. They're all in my brain as I'm kind of creating these lines. And
and it's filtered through, you as a player. It's distinctive. I know that it's not as to the blues, but it's another one of those songs that I love, where it kind of begins with a simple line and premise, but just really grows. It just has this sort of
Well, that I think that kind of like boils down to the creative side, the compositional side, because like I'm playing in a bluesy style as far as my phrasing, but the song is written in such a way where it's coming from my sensibilities as a writer. Like, what do I like? It's not just a straight blues. Like, it kind of moves into this more melodic, like Dregsy, Steve Morrissey thing.
Yeah.
Because that's what I like. It doesn't have a normal blues turnaround on the 5-chord, because that's cool, but it's traditional. Like, I kind of twisted it to make it sound more like something I would like, that's maybe more proggy or something like that. So it's like, in the style, the guitar style I'm playing is definitely blues-y. But the compositional style is mixed up with my own things.
Yeah, well, the compositional style is John Petrucci. I mean, these are just reference points is all.
Right.
I got thinking when I listened to Glass-Eyed Zombies, which is just this really great crunchy track, I got me wondering how much, if any, game licensing you've had with your music. And I know that there've been plenty of like Guitar Hero and Rock Bands, things like that. But I mean, this track would be perfect for like The Last of Us or Dying Light or Resident Evil. Like, who on your team can we talk to about licensing this in for like zombie games? For real.
Well, we used to be able to talk to you, remember?
That's right. Yeah. Back at Xbox.
That's right. I don't know if people know that history either. And I don't know if you like to talk about it or not. That's how we met you. That you were at Xbox and you we wrote a song for, right? We wrote God of War.
Yeah.
A song for God of War. Yeah.
Yeah, we did that. My great story there is I had a program at Microsoft at Xbox called Game with Fame. And since I got to select the artists, I selected you guys for one of them.
That was awesome.
And I got to fly to New York on Microsoft. This is my favorite part of the story, is on Microsoft's dime. We went to like one of the most expensive steak houses in Manhattan.
I remember it clearly. That was an awesome steakhouse.
Yeah. Someone ordered like 2 huge sea, like all this ice and every kind of shellfish and clam you can imagine's there. And
Wow.
I remember because I turned in my expense report, and the tab was like over $1,000 for that dinner. And I didn't even bat an eye because Microsoft's got how many
Right.
gajillions of dollars. And it just gave me so much joy to be able to do that. And I got to visit, I think you guys were recording in Manhattan too. I think there was a studio downtown.
Yeah, I don't remember the timing of it, because the track we actually recorded on Long Island, the
Oh, okay.
Raw Dog that we did for that. Yeah.
But
But
anyway,
that was fun. That was a great dinner. Yes.
a great moment. Your son came when he was just little.
Oh my God, that's
You
right.
brought your
That's
boy. Now
crazy.
I think he's
Wow.
graduated, right? From college
Wow.
or something.
Well, he's 25 now, that little
Yeah,
boy.
he's not a
Yeah.
boy anymore. He's a man. Yeah, that was fun. That was a fun night.
Absolutely.
So anyway, yeah. So we cross paths a lot during the Xbox days, but I
Yeah.
don't.
So to answer your question, I mean, yeah, I'd love. I think my music would go well with video games for sure, especially modern
Yeah.
interpretations. It only happened for me once in the past. Some people know this, some people don't, but I was asked to do music for a Sega Saturn
Yeah.
game. That's dating me big time. Um, and I wrote, this company hired me to write two pieces, like an intro piece and an outro piece, for a game they had called Necronomicon.
Okay.
And I did that. It's like a 1.5 minute piece and a 2.5 minute or something like that. And you can find it. It's out there. And that was the only time I had a song as part of a video game,
Well, maybe we'll
besides the thing
spread
that
the
you and I worked
word.
on. Yeah, spread the word.
That's something you'd be open to. Uh,
Yeah.
we'll direct them. Anybody, if anybody calls, we'll direct them to Frank. Is Frank the right guy?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Well, there's there's so much instrumental music between all the stuff, my solo albums and Liquid Tension. Like, there's so much stuff that would work. My solo music is the little, probably has more of the intense, darker side to it that would be fitting to some of these games.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah. Those. There's a lot of that. It's just this
right.
frenetic drive that you hear a lot in the genre. So
Absolutely.
maybe when we're done, I've still got friends back there. Maybe I'll shoot them.
There you go. All right.
So let's talk a little bit about Dream Theater. I know you guys are. Well, do you just tell me where are you at in the process on the next record?
Sure. Well, we started. It's been a crazy year not being on the road because of COVID and everything like that. So I've literally kind of the studio that I talked about has been my second home, like, since March. And I went from my solo album to Liquid Tension over the summer. And October of last year, the band got together and we started work on the record. We finished it up just at the end of March, and it's in the mix stage now. It'll be out later this year. I can't really talk too much about it. We'll reveal more and more about its context and contents and title and personnel and everything like that as it gets closer, the way that we always do. We always like to have fun with the release and
you guys do,
and the build up to that. But the only thing I could really say is it's all done and recorded and being mixed, and we had a lot of fun doing it. I don't know if it's pent up energy from everybody being home because of the pandemic, but everybody brought their A game and came to play, and the songs kick ass, and it's really I'm really, really proud of it. So I can't wait for people to hear it. It'll be some time. It'll be out later this year, but
just to kind of be sure in one place, if people want to start getting excited, Jordan was quoted as saying people are going to freak out, and and Mike said it's energetic. I love this phrase, energetically unrelenting.
Nice.
And then he told this whole story about walking, I guess, from recording session or something out to the cars, and he's like, man, we're kind of getting over, like, past the middle age part a little bit, and we're playing more frenetically than we ever have. So it's just a testament. I don't know what to expect, but if you guys are like this amped on just the energy going into the record, I'm excited.
Yeah, there's a lot of energy. I mean, as with Dream Theater has a long history now and a long career, and this is our 15th studio album. And
That's right.
Better than just as well as me how things are received, sometimes better than others.
Yeah,
You
that's
never
true.
know. You never know.
Expectations can
You
be
feel,
tough, right?
right. You never know how something is going to be received. You put your best foot forward and you do your best work and you feel great and confident and you put it out there. Um, but I will say that I am super excited about this one, and we definitely put it out, all out there
Oh,
for
that's
sure. There is no what's the word? We were not musically lazy in any way.
well, I read a story too that talked about how you'd get to a part and you'd do something and it'd be good, and a lot of times you just push yourselves to go an extra mile to make it that much more distinctive. Um,
Yeah,
and that's a creative principle that I've seen even in my other life, in my writing life, is you can do something that will work fine, but usually the things that resonate are where you've pushed yourself a little bit further for something that's more unique, something that's going
yeah.
to be more surprising or
Right,
different.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, you continue to ask questions, and I always kind of use like myself as a barometer. Like, is this something I'm into and excited and can't wait to share with somebody, and I'm proud of, or is it something that's boring me? If it's boring me, then it's not going to be exciting to somebody else.
Yeah.
I think also just the series of events like that. I did my solo album, then Liquid Tension, then Dream Theater, all in our DTHQ studio. We learned as we went along. Those albums were engineered and put together, uh, you know, during that time, and I think the process has become, it's just gotten better and better, the way that we're recording and tracking the drums and the sounds we're getting and stuff. So it's cool. It's cool. We got all of that experience into this Dream Theater record. Sounds better than ever.
Well, and I mean, I don't know that this is the case, but to me, it kind of would stand to reason that now that you've got your own space, you're
Yeah.
never having to acclimate to a new space, a new area. You know where
Right.
you know what I mean? So the comfort
Yeah.
might just be a benefit.
It's great. It's great. And somebody asked me the other day if when we're in the studio, is it the type of thing where we're coming back 5 days later, like looking for the perfect snare drum and trying to get that right, like, and the answer is no. It's like we're dialed. Like our engineer is so good. It's like we set up the gear and assuming that it's the right gear, and all the research that went into us picking the gear we use, whether it's signature gear or gear that we endorse, and why we use it, because we love the way it sounds, and then it's mic'd up professionally. It's like we start playing and it already sounds good. We're not sitting there searching for weeks for a
Yeah.
guitar sound or like whatever. It's there, and that's real. What's really great about having the studio space too is there is that consistency,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
the space, the room. You could spend unlimited hours there. There's not like a financial clock ticking, with an hourly rate or overhead. So it's really cool. So
Yeah.
yeah.
It also probably eases the spend, right?
Oh yeah,
For like
absolutely.
quite a bit. Because
I don't think that I would have, between with all three of these projects, especially probably my solo album, I don't think I would have been able to do it if we didn't have this space.
Interesting.
Especially because of COVID in the beginning in New York, and like
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
restrictions and lockdown, studios, and it would have been a mess. And then I might have been trying to do it at home in my home studio, and it just wouldn't have been as inspired or something. I don't know. It's really like a blessing, this whole having this space to do it in,
Yeah. Yeah.
just having a place to drive to and go and put your head down and work.
Yeah. Home away from home.
Yeah.
Um, so I gotta ask you about the 8 string.
Yeah.
Um, how did that? I mean, it's by itself, it's just a cool idea, and certainly
Mhm.
gives you more notes. But is there something you discovered in the use of the 8 string in writing this record that opened up a dimension or a capacity that just like thrilled you, excited you?
Right. It was definitely exciting. This is something that uh, I've been talking to Ernie Ball Music Man about for several years, doing an 8 string version of my guitar. We decided to use the Majesty as the build for it. So it'll be an 8 string Majesty, and for me, I guess instead of approaching writing on the guitar from a place where there are 8 string artists that I liked, or styles of music that used 8 string that I wanted to kind of emulate and reproduce, instead of coming from that place, I kind of just took it as, all right, my guitar has one more string, you know, my, like, let's say my 7 string now has one more string. So
Yeah.
what else could I do with that? And it's just like thinking of a piano that just goes lower, like on the left hand, like there's more variations on riffs and where you can take them, and keys that might sound better because you can go below certain notes. You're not restricted to the normal range of the guitar.
Yeah.
And that's the way I approached it. So you'll hear on the song, there's one track on the Dream Theater album with 8-string, and you'll hear the riff it uses that range. And it's just really like,
I can't wait to hear that.
Yeah, it's cool sounding. So it sounds like me playing, you know, it sounds like Dream Theater. It's just I have 2 more strings than a normal guitar. And it's fun, and it's mean and has a lot of attitude, and you know, it's just as proggy and technical as anything you'd expect, but just with lower notes.
More notes. I did get one, well, actually several people asked me, and I mean, we've maybe talked about this before, but was there ever, and maybe you can't disclose this, but was there ever a live recording of the Astonishing? Is that, do you think there's a day where there'll be a release of something like that? Or is that?
Right. I would love to do that. I mean, we multi-track recorded every show.
Okay.
So there is audio of every show on that tour for sure. So that is something I would love to put together as a release, would be the Astonishing Live. The thing that we don't have, which just kills me, I lose sleep over it, is that we never filmed the show.
Oh, no.
Yeah, there's no, and we restricted cameras and filming, so there's no even like fan recordings. So, you know, that was like without a doubt the best Dream Theater production we've ever put on.
Oh yeah, dude.
And we intended to film it for a DVD in a very special location, and never got the opportunity because we shifted our the 20th anniversary of Images and Words. We shifted our whole thing.
Yeah.
Anyway,
well,
yeah.
Maybe there's a special engagement because of the way you guys decided to tour that record in the theaters. There's plenty of people, especially because some of the conversation is, man, when you see this live, it really comes to life in a unique way.
Yeah.
So I don't know, maybe there's a future date where you can film it, because I think that there's a pent up audience for it.
That would be amazing. That's something that would take a lot of work.
Yeah,
but it would be a lot of fun. I don't know if I told you about this, Peter, but this is something that I wish in retrospect we did. And first of all, I know we're getting close to our time, but I want people to understand.
My time is not limited. We'll go as long as you're able.
Gotcha. I wanted people to realize the connection that you wrote the novel to the Astonishing. I wrote the short story to create the album, and I wrote the lyrics, but you know, when you and I talked, and James read and I read your previous works, and you know, we knew you were the right guy. You know, you went in and wrote the full novel to the Astonishing, which is mind-blowing, and I absolutely love it. And if anybody, you know, whoever likes that record, and if you haven't read the novel, you really gain an understanding. But I don't know if I told you this, but I feel in retrospect, I would have liked to have done things way differently, where we actually put the book out first before the album.
Yeah.
And then booked the tour. And then you buy the album at the tour, you know, the same way you would as like with a Broadway production or something like that. Because the reaction that people had walking out of those theaters was like nothing I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And they got it, and it was just the full overall experience. Whereas if you just heard the album for the first time, unless you're a super open-minded Dream Theater fan, which most thankfully are, you might not get it, or it might not be what you expect, or you might be like, this doesn't sound like Dream Theater. So if we would have flipped things around and done it that way, that would have been really cool.
I think it would have been I think it would have had a different impact. I mean, it's the same way if you listen to a soundtrack for a Broadway show, the songs can still be great. but once you understand the story and you get
Right.
and you guys, you had the visuals helped to evoke that live.
Sure.
The way James would sing it and sort of participate in the characterization, all that stuff translated so well in the live show.
It
And
did.
that's, I mean, you just can't get all of that on the sound recording. So
No, and it was, the live show was like going on a ride, like I
it
talked about
was.
before, because we had these crazy LED screens that were at different stage depths. That sometimes it just looked like the whole stage, the drum kit was flying. You know, it was amazing. And the company that spent the time doing all those visuals was just absolutely incredible at what they did, and they even built a Nomac, a physical working Nomac that was in the lobbies of the theaters where people can interact with and get their photos taken. Those would show in the intermission, and we you know, we thought of everything. We had, our whole crew was like in matching jumpsuits. Everybody played the part. There were playbills. It was hardcore, and the venues that we picked too were all super special, and we
They
do
were.
a couple of nights, you know, especially throughout Europe. We'd stay 2 or 3 nights in a location. Of course, we played Radio City Music Hall, sold out, which was
Okay.
just always a thrill being in from New York. And so anyway, it's very special. Long answer to your question. We don't have a filmed version we could do, but we could certainly release a live audio version. That would be fun.
Yeah. Well, at
Yeah.
some point, I think people would love that.
Yeah.
The just a couple quick questions, just more about John Petrucci, and then I'm sure you've got other things to do today.
I have a couple of chickens I'm going to smoke tonight, actually.
So this is one of the questions I have about John Petrucci. Is, so you and I talked about this at one point, but you when you kind of make up your mind about something, it's not you, and you were, when we talked about this, it's not obsessive, but it's like you kind of go all in. All your chips go in. You did this with guitar. You did it when you started to work out. By the way, if anybody hasn't seen the press photo for the LTE3 with these 4 guys standing there, John's in profile, and his arm from bicep to tricep is as big as every other band member's head. It's kind of it's a testament to this personality trait of yours where you just commit. And you did, when you started to go with the beard.
Yeah.
The beard became such a thing. You've got your own product line we want to talk about, but I have to know, because I've seen so many pictures now of you grilling. Are you this fanatic about grilling?
Well, okay, so it's funny. Yeah, you know, there's definitely certain things that I become a little obsessed about, for sure. And you know, part of the photo trick is you have to flex when the photo is taken. Make sure you're at the right angle.
Yeah, well, you
Flex
did
the
it, man.
tricep.
I actually, that was the first thing I saw when I saw that photo. I'm like, oh my goodness, John. I worry about, I have to tell you, I worry about your fingers, because you're in there in the gym. I'm like, he's going to drop one of those things and crush a bone.
Don't say that.
Yeah, be careful.
Well, you know what? Actually, no joke. Like, I am super careful, obviously.
Yeah.
You have to be when you're throwing around metal.
Yeah.
Heavy metal.
Well, you've got
weights,
a home gym, right? Or at least some.
I do. Yeah, I do. Yeah. And you know, you learn also like things that you shouldn't do. Like, okay, I'm not going to do that again. And you know, I'm super careful, and you just have to be. I mean, I'm a guitar player.
Yeah. So, but back to the grilling.
Injuries like that. But the grilling thing. So listen, you know, several years ago, obviously the guitar company that I've been with for 20 years, we're actually celebrating 20 years this year, which is a whole nother topic.
And by the way, let me interject and give you a plug there. I didn't know this, but when I was looking, the Ernie Ball Music Man John Petrucci JP6 is the second best-selling signature model of all time, behind only Gibson Les Paul, which technically isn't even a signature model.
Right. That is an insane stat that it just blows my mind. I'm so humbled by that, and I love that so many people all around the world are enjoying the instrument, because that's what it's all about.
Yeah.
This whole like design headspace where, you know, I'm driven to guitar and instrument, musical instrument design.
Yeah.
And the fact that that's been facilitated by and done so expertly by the engineers and everybody in the Ball family, over the last 20 years. It's just so cool. And that stat that you just said is mind blowing. It just makes me so grateful.
Well, I
Um,
have to tell you, I
but
see
the
lots of videos around YouTube of guitar
Yeah,
guys, just good players with a lot of technique. And I would say 90% of them are playing your guitar. And these,
that's
like,
amazing.
I
That's
mean,
amazing.
I
I
think
mean,
guys who care that
that's
much about the instrument, there, I don't know if you've just really designed this for a player that's trying to do this kind of guitar
yeah.
work, but
Well, it's kind of nice because it sort of transcends what you want it to do, especially with a signature instrument. It transcends yourself, like, and it becomes more about the art of the design of the instrument. The fact that somebody else can get that enjoyment out of it and be inspired by it, it doesn't necessarily have to do anything with me. And I like that disconnect there.
yeah.
And that's why you see so many people playing it. Um, but the other side to the president of Ernie Ball Music Man, Sterling Ball, who I've known for now 20 years, is that he's a champion barbecue pit master
Uh,
who, yeah, he's award-winning barbecue pit master who is an unbelievable cook. And he got into barbecue at one point in his career to the point where he started a company called Big Papa's Smokers. And so it was the only, I don't know if it still is, it might be the only US distributor for smokers, pellet smokers, and things
oh,
like
okay,
that.
yeah.
It expanded into where they sell rubs and sauces and cutlery and meat and everything as well. And they do competitions. But at some point, he decided to send all of his endorsers. So it'd be like me, Luca Thirsty, Morris, Albert Lee, smokers. So one day, this like $2,000 like pellet smoker shows up at my house in New York, and I'm like, what the hell do I do with this thing? And talk about somebody who's passionate about the things that he does. Sterling takes it to where he becomes a champion.
Yeah.
It's winning like Kingsford events. So it's like, okay, I better learn how to use this thing. And I started to get into it, and that opened up a whole different side of our relationship, mine and Sterling's, talking about barbecue and smoking and meat temperatures and recipes and everything. And it turned out to be fun. I've heard like there's guys that are super invested and into it. I hear even like somebody like Dave Grohl is like super hardcore into
Is
it.
that right?
I use the smoker as much as I can. Sometimes not as often as I'd like, being in New York with the colder climate
Yeah.
for part of the year. But tonight I'm gonna smoke a couple of chickens because the weather's nice, and it's gonna be fun. So yeah, it's a fun side. I'm no way anywhere near the level of Sterling and his expertise, but it's cool. It's a cool hobby. It's fun, and I don't know, man. Something about the way chicken, turkey, ribs, steaks, fish, whatever you do comes out in the smoker. That's just,
I'm
it's like you'll never go to a restaurant again. It's just so good.
I'm with you. I'm 100%
Yeah,
with you.
so good.
I got thinking about it because there's a video from the Distance Over Time release time that
Yeah,
shows you got a lot of stuff, but it shows you doing that. And then as I was just kind of trolling around the internet today, because I want to talk about, you've got the John Petrucci Guitar Universe, and there's this amazing picture of you in front of this layout of cooking meat on that
right.
website. So let's use that as a transition. You're doing it again this year in July, right?
I am. So the John Petrucci's Guitar Universe, this will be the 3.0. So we did two so far. The one that's happening in July in California was actually rescheduled from last year
Okay.
because of COVID and the pandemic. It didn't happen, and we did postpone it a year. So it'll be July 27th to 31st at the Anaheim Marriott in California. First time doing it on the West Coast. The first two were done on Long Island, in New York.
Yeah.
And lots of firsts, and this is going to be so amazing. My beautiful, talented wife, Raina,
I
is going to
saw
be one of
that.
the guest instructors. So that's so cool.
Yeah.
The collection of guest instructors is mind blowing. The level of talent, it's and it's totally international. You got Joshua Stefan, gypsy jazz uh, artist from Germany, Tom Quayle from the UK. We got Kiko Loureiro and Mateus Asado, who are Brazilian.
Yeah.
We have Tosin Abasi, Jason Richardson, who did my other 2 clinics. So they're coming back, not clinics, camps. So they're coming back to join us again. I don't want to leave anybody out. We have Pliny from Australia. A lot of these guys, it's their first time doing my camp. So it's going to be so much fun. And you can go to John Petrucci's guitaruniverse.com to see all of the guest instructors.
Is there still
hopefully I haven't left anybody out.
Room for like enrollment to go?
I think there is still room for enrollment. I know the people that enrolled last year, it carried over to this year, but there's probably still spots if people want to go. It's going to be in California again at the Anaheim Marriott. If any musician has ever attended the NAMM show, it's that location right next to the convention center. It's a great spot. Disneyland is right next door, and we like to have fun. Sterling Ball will be there. I believe he's going to cook for everybody.
Oh, nice.
At my past camps, we've done wine tastings. We have fun. We hang out. There's jams. There's concerts. There's master classes. It's really, really, really cool. And again, if I mistakenly left out any instructors, I apologize. And go to John Petrucci's guitaruniverse.com. You can see everybody listed there.
Yeah, I definitely wanted to plug that because
thank you.
There's so many. I know players who have talked about wanting to go. A lot of them international, and a lot of times the barrier is just travel. So I think it's cool you're doing it on West Coast. But I wanted to be sure we mention it for folks who want to come, because even does it top out though? Like there's only so many you can take.
Yeah, there are. Right, exactly. I believe now my camps have been the largest of all the ones that Dreamcatcher has done, because they do them for other artists like Joe Satriani and Steve Vai and other players, and mine tend to be more of a universe. So we'll have, I think we cap out at 200 and 200 campers, and we have a lot of guest instructors.
Okay.
So it's an experience. But yeah, if you people are interested, and if there's some open slots left, I recommend you jump on them now.
So the last thing I want to ask you about ties back into something you just became almost obsessed with, but this beard of yours, which just it's so luxurious. I don't know if that's a word, but you've got this partnership with Captain Fawcett. How did that come about?
So as with anything in life, there are certain things you get into, and it becomes a hobby, whether that's smoking, meaning barbecue, that kind of smoking, or whatever it might be. In this case, it's bearding. I've always had some kind of facial hair, probably since the Awake album, probably since like 93, 94. Yeah. But at some point, I don't know why, I just decided to get into like what would happen, if I grew a full beard out. And I just started getting into it, and like anything else, I dove in, and turns out there's a whole world. There's a whole bearding culture with all these different companies with products, and there's videos on how to trim and what to do, and the different combs and tools and brushes and scissors. It's a whole thing you could very easily get sucked into, which I did. But through that process, I'd buy different products to try things out. At one point, Raina bought me some product from Captain Fawcett, like you said, a UK company, and I just absolutely loved it. I loved the product. I loved the scent. I loved their vibe and their whole aesthetic and everything. It's really cool. You got to check out Captain Fawcett. There's this whole lore and mythology behind the company that's really, really cool. Anyway, I became a customer. I bought more stuff. I used their stuff. And I guess through that process, through ordering stuff, at some point they reached out, because some of these things happen this way organically. One of the people that worked there was a Dream Theater fan, was a guitar player. And they wrote saying, this guy Corey is a fan. Hey, would you, be into, I forget what the first thing was. They shared some of my Instagram posts. I did some things for them. Eventually, Corey came to a Dream Theater show. In fact, it was the Live at London show that we filmed for the DVD that came out last year. And, at that show, because Captain Fawcett already does collaborations with barbers, tattoo models, different. They've done like 9 different celebrity quote unquote collaborations with
Yeah.
Beard Sense. I said, hey, if you ever wanted to do one with a bearded guitar player, I'd love to do it. And I was thinking about it, I'm like, I don't think with all the bearded musicians and guitar players, I don't know if I've ever seen that angle. I've seen
No, I haven't.
anybody do that. If they have, maybe I missed it, but I'm like, because they're collaborating with like models, bikers, famous like stylists and barbers and stuff, but no musicians. I'm like, man, so many musicians have beard, like they're into this.
Yeah.
And so they said, yeah, we'd love to. And it happened. And we developed, we had a bunch of meetings, and we did some scent research, and they're brilliant at their art and packaging and marketing. And we started this thing, and lo and behold, I have a men's grooming product line with Captain Fawcett called Nebula. And in fact, we just did a really cool, this shows like the support of the different companies and everything, and how important relationships are. But we just did a really cool contest where Ernie Ball Music Man got involved, and Dunlop got involved, and Captain Fawcett, and somebody won one of my Nebula Majesties and wah pedal and all this great stuff. And people are really great with that contest. So it's a big family, and it's fun tying in different loves, whether it be bearding or guitar or barbecue or whatever. It's kind of fun bringing all these things together.
Yeah.
And making this whole culture.
Well,
yeah. So thanks for asking about that. I appreciate it.
Well, I can't grow a beard. Like, this is the extent of what I can do genetically. So I have I have beard envy, I guess, is what you'd call it. But your beard made, back years ago, there was this really great program on VH1 called That Metal Show with Eddie Trunk.
Right, of course.
And I know you've been on that show, and but they would do these it's like a top 10 list or something. And each of the guys would nominate, and they did a category for rock beards. And you got nominated by Eddie. He says, where did Petrucci came out of nowhere with this like amazing beard. And that's when, there was a lot of musicians just began to do that. Zach Wilde, et cetera. So
yeah, that's awesome. I didn't know that. That's awesome. Yeah. Thank you, Eddie.
Your beard made Eddie Trunk.
I love it. Yeah. I ended up playing, like you said, as a guest. The show that I play, I was like the guitar player they'd cut to for commercials, and I'd shred.
Yeah.
And it was the show that Geddy Lee was on. It was the first time I met Geddy.
Oh, is that your first time?
Yeah, I never met him before.
Oh, wow.
It was awesome. I met him on the set of that show, and then they invited me down. Next thing I know, I'm sitting next to him discussing Rush albums.
Oh, how cool, man.
It was awesome. It was really awesome.
Yeah, that's awesome. Because I know that you've been a fan of Rush. You've talked about that a lot of times. Yeah. Okay, so to end this, let me ask you this: what kind of mountains are ahead of you that you want to climb, whether musical or something else? Like, is there something you haven't tried yet that you want to when time permits?
You know what? There is something that I'm actually getting involved with that you will learn very soon. Okay. Forthcoming. Okay. That's another area that I'm interested in, and that's a lot of fun for me as well. So you'll see that kind of come to light.
There's an announcement coming later this year, maybe.
There's an announcement coming very soon.
Oh, very soon.
Very, 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 very soon. But you know what? All the things that they continue to inspire me and intrigue me, guitar and musical instrument design, and of course, just being a guitar player and trying to learn new stuff. And I'm grateful that during this really crazy and difficult year with the pandemic, that I've been able to create music and continue to do what I love. And the biggest mountain, honestly, this might sound kind of cliche or corny, but right now is when live performances are going to start up again, and we're all going to be able to get out there and enjoy touring and playing live and doing what we love to do, which is sharing music, with people. So that's the mountain I can't wait to get to
get back on. When that comes around, will you guys continue with the tour that was, or will you build in some of the new record at this point?
Right. Well, it's really hard to say. It depends on the timing.
Yeah.
it depends on the timing and when the record's coming out and when that happens. So it's a
So
little
we'll have to
difficult
stay
say.
tuned for that.
Yeah.
Okay, so I want to leave you with a slightly personal story. I can't remember if I told you this before, but it goes back to something everybody I think who knows you knows about your amazing facility on the instrument. Not just shredding, but the expressiveness. And I think what distinguishes you for me is not just the technical facility, but the way you're able to use that to communicate musical ideas. Whether it's just an expression of your soul or an intellectual idea or a concept album. But you wrote a song on the Awake album called Scarred.
Right.
And you wrote the lyrics for that. And this, I don't know, 30 years ago, I don't know how long ago you wrote that. But
yeah.
And I won't get into too many details, but the narrative that you construct for that particular song all these years later, like hit me squarely in my own personal life. And
wow.
It was, it was cathartic. And I think I wanted to share with you, I think that one of the unsung, if I can say it that way, skills you possess is as a lyricist to communicate so well, in concert with the music, ideas and story that I think really can touch people. I could actually give you more examples from your work to do that, but that one was like, I behind me, you can't see it, but just out of sight
right.
is my own, where I sit up and sing. And I've been going through a bunch of Dream Theater songs just, to keep my chops up. And when I do that tune, there's sometimes I struggle to get through it for emotion.
Wow.
So I just want you to know, I think the music, there's a lot of fans who just love how crunchy metal it is. And that's valid and valuable and really cool. But there's the other end of that spectrum. There's like a way that the music, I think, has its emotional core that I think is part of what has created its timelessness. Like you've got new fans, and it's rare to find somebody who has heard you and become a fan that is no longer a fan. And I think it's a testament to this. I think it's a testament to some of this, what I'm describing in the thoughtfulness.
Well, thank you for sharing that. I appreciate that. And you getting back to the emotional connection we started this whole thing off with. It's really important to make that with people. And I was always into creative writing, and I never took it to the extent that you did writing novels, but I found that writing lyrics for me in songs was the perfect outlet for that. And I enjoy that just as much as the music. It's fun. Reading, I grew up reading Neil Peart's music and Neil Peart's lyrics in Rush, and miss him dearly. Obviously we all do, but it's what an inspiration. And I love that side of it. And I never get tired of hearing somebody sharing a story, how something that I wrote or the band wrote, whether it's music or lyrics, touch them in their life in a very deep and personal way. I appreciate you sharing that.
Yeah,
that's awesome. That's what it's all about.
It's
really cool.
I think a lot of your fans have that connection.
Yeah,
and
great.
Going through this whole COVID thing, there's a line from Lines in the Sand that says, "Sometimes a view from sinless eyes centers our perspective and pacifies our cries." And I've reflected on that in my own journey through this isolation and the challenging times. Anyway, it's just another, for me, validation of the music. And I'm so honored that you would spend some time with me to kick this whole thing off.
Absolutely. Congratulations. I'm very happy for you. I hope this turns into a huge success. I'm sure you'll have a lot of exciting guests, but congratulations, and thanks for including me as, again, your inaugural.
That's right.
Interviewee.
I wouldn't have it any other way. So thank you, folks. Just so you remember, we've got the new LTE3 record releases the 16th, which is just 2 days from now on Friday. Terminal Velocity, John's most recent solo record, is out. As you can tell, I'm a fan, but I think I step back objectively, this record, anybody who's a fan of guitar music is going to love this record. And I was going to tell you, John, even though I reach back all the time to the older DT stuff, Distance Over Time hasn't left my CD player because I still buy physical media in months.
That's awesome.
So I can commend everybody to the most recent DT record as they wait for more information on the new release that's coming. So again,
that's awesome. Thanks,
John.
I appreciate it.
good luck to those chickens you're gonna go grill up.
All right, buddy. They're gonna be. I wish you could taste them. They're gonna come out really good.
I'm sure. I'll be mouth watering from here. All right, my friend.
Right.
You take care.
You too.
All
I'll
right.
talk to you soon.
Okay.
Right,
Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye.